Hey guys, we hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying safe during this time. We left this week, instead of doing a drawing lesson, we wanted to just send out the Bible projects. They just recently did one on justice, and so we wanted to give a pretty general view of what biblical justice looks like. We think they do a pretty good job, but we also want to be sensitive and address the fact that there is social injustice happening right now, and we don't want to ignore that. And so this is just a couple of things that we think we're called to as Christians. And so we're going to stay out of politics here and just try to capture the character of Jesus pretty as well as we can. And so the first thing that I want to get into is that one of the last things that Jesus said while he was alive was when asked what the greatest commandment was. He says in Mark 12:29 that the most important commandment is this: Listen, O Israel, the Lord your God is the one and only Lord. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And the second is equally important: love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandments are greater than these. And so the important thing I think here to note is that in the same couple sentences, in the same breath that Jesus mentions loving the Lord your God, he also mentions loving your neighbor. It's very important to be able to love your neighbor. It's not something that we should just cast to the side and only do when it's convenient to us. And not something that we should only address when there's trends going, but instead that we should be consistently trying to love our neighbors. And so then the next question that we have is, who is our neighbor and what does that look like? And so for that we go into one of my favorite excerpts in the Bible, which is in Matthew 26, where Jesus is addressing, I take it back, Matthew 25, he's talking about the final judgment. And so this is kind of long, so I'll try and summarize it a little bit. So he's saying, in the last days, I will separate you into two groups of people, those who loved me and those who didn't. And so he says, for when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. When I was a stranger, you invited me into your home. When I was naked, you gave me clothing. When I was sick, you cared for me. When I was in prison, you visited me. Then the righteous ones replied, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink, or as a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? Or when did we see you sick and in prison and visit you? And the king will say, I tell you the truth, that whatever you did to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me. And similarly, he goes on to say the people who rejected him were the same people who saw him hungry, saw him thirsty, saw him as a stranger, saw him naked and didn't give him clothing, saw him sick and didn't care for him, and rejected him. Those people, Jesus will say, when you were refusing them, you were refusing me. And so the first thing that we need to notice is there's a great amount of weight on loving our neighbor. And our neighbors are not just the people who live physically in the house next to us. It's more than just the people on our street, but also can be extended into those people who are suffering. This is including the poor, the hungry, those who are being oppressed, those who are in situations of imprisonment, and those who are being forgotten by society. Those are the people who, when we love them, we're loving Jesus. And so during a time like this, when there's just so much tension and so many people on different sides, it's really important that we are called to love even those who were conditioned to not love. And the last thing is more specifically going into what do the least of these look like for us today. If we go all the way back into Deuteronomy 10:19 tells us, I lost my place. Okay, it says, so you too must show love to the foreigners, for you yourselves were once foreigners in the land of Egypt. And so this is talking to Israel, but can also be applied today. So they were foreigners, and today what foreigners look like are not only immigrants, but also people of color. And I think that the most important thing for us to do, as it can be applied to minorities also, as a primarily Japanese church, as a church that's almost full of minorities, we should be empathetic to their experience and listen and seek biblical justice. And the biblical justice that I'm talking about will be found in that video. We hope you guys are encouraged by this. Really hope that you're all feeling loved, and I would love to have any conversations with anybody who has comments, questions. Miss you guys, and hope you're doing well in a time like this. Definitely praying for you.